Hey, welcome back to another episode of the BBCE podcast. I'm Phil Endris, here with the owner of Baseball Card Exchange, Steve Hart. And today we're going to talk about a subject that most everyone watching can relate to, and that is this: the ones that got away. Now, we're not talking about a girl. We're not talking about a boyfriend or girlfriend. We're talking about sports cards, wax boxes, unopened packs, you name it, sports memorabilia, autographs that we could have bought, but it got away for one reason or another. Maybe we were at a show. We walked to a booth and we were like, oh, that's a good one. Then we forgot about it. Or maybe it's a deal that at the time was a bit cumbersome in that there's a lot of duplication. We're like, we don't want to mess with this, but it got away. Today, we're going to talk about some that got away personally and individually, obviously, but also in regards to BBCE. Steve,
Yes.
You've got some that got away.
Oh, yeah.
What's one that comes to mind?
Well, let me start out with a broad statement. People always ask me all the time, do you have things that you wish you never sold? And my answer is usually everything I ever owned for the first 3 decades of doing this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, everything that I sold in the 90s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, unopened, has multiplied 5, 6, 7, 10 times.
Right.
But unfortunately, I couldn't keep everything that I owned, otherwise the business couldn't survive. You
Right.
had to buy it and sell it to exist. But basically, everything I ever owned, I wish I had back.
It's all went up that
Oh,
much.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Cards, Hall of Famers, sets, unopened, singles.
So that's kind of a reverse. The ones that got away, what you're saying, are items that you actually sold.
Yes, people ask me, what is it? And I'm like, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah. I've read several articles in regards to what you're talking about how sports cards for the last 30 or 40 years have outperformed the S&P. I don't know what all of those numbers are, but certainly everything has went up in a major way in the past 40 years, especially in regards to vintage cards. I mean,
Pretty much it has to be anything of interest, anything.
Right.
Of course, the garbage, not so much, but of course, almost everything is anything of interest. So,
right. So is there anything that comes to mind that you could have bought that maybe at the time you just thought, I don't know if I want to mess with this. I don't know if I want to tie up this much money in this particular item, product. Anything that comes to mind?
And I believe in a previous podcast we talked about the 1975 unopened mini case find. It was an old REA auction. I think they had near 30 cases in the auction. And one of my good friends in the industry said, hey, let's buy these. We'll split the deal and just throw them on the shelf. And I said, are you nuts? I says, you know what 30 cases is going to do to the market? These things will be worthless forever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously they went for $600-700 a box, and now they're $10,000 to $12,000.
Yeah.
So we probably should have bought them and split them, and threw them into the closet. So
Yeah.
there's an example right there.
And that's part of what makes collecting and buying and selling fun. You have to be strategic with it. So not everybody can just spend $100,000 on one product and then keep them on a shelf for forever.
And even at that time, that had been a lot of money for me to cough up to just sit off to the corner. So
right, and I think you had even mentioned that you tried selling those 75 mini boxes, the ones that you did have, for $800 at a show.
It wasn't an easy sale.
And it wasn't an easy sell. So at the time, you're probably thinking right. Certainly, if somebody was just starting off or didn't have a lot of disposable cash to throw around in investment opportunities. But yeah, that's hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Yep. So looking back and going, all right, $600, whatever that was a box. Now they're selling for what, 12?
10 to 12,000.
10 to 12,000. Yeah, it's a pretty good investment. What about cards? Any cards that you passed up that you wish you would have?
For a while there, when PSA 10 rookies, were popular, but originally didn't have anything. I remember an Ozzie Smith 10, $5,000, and that was just insane.
Right.
How's that card worth $5,000? Jordan 10s, I remember at the Anaheim National.
Yes.
Somebody had 3 of them for $5,000 a piece, and I said that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So basically, every rookie Hall of Famer that we all thought was just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The Ozzies are $100,000. The Jordans are $100,000. Ricky Hendersons are $100,000. Brett's are 100,000. So
I didn't even have this plan to talk about. And by the way, most of what we say is not planned. We don't talk about any of this stuff. We kind of spitfire. You're talking about the PSA 10 Jordan.
Yeah.
You know my love for 86 Fleer. I was at a Chicago show probably 10 years or less ago. Mm-hmm. And went up to a table that had a PSA 10 Jordan. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the nicest PSA 10 Jordan that I had. And so I asked for about a 5% discount. I want to say it was like 11 or 12,000. I mean, I know it was right around there. That was the market at the time. And he said, I'm firm. And I said, I'll pass. That's one that got away right there. I mean, when I say it wasn't the nicest, it was still a 10. It looked beautiful.
Right.
But I had seen, 10s that may have been just a little better. So yeah, that's definitely one that got away from me.
One thing collectors may not know who haven't been around as long as we have is back in the mid-'80s, baseball cards were the only things worth money. Football,
True.
basketball, and hockey was absolute trash. Mm-hmm. And I can remember large resellers like Steve Myland, No Gum Just Cards, were selling 81, 84, 86 football wax cases for $49 delivered.
Yep.
And
$2, a little over $2 a box.
And they paid shipping.
$2.50 a box.
And of course, we looked at this SCD ad every 2 weeks and saw these prices. And of course, this is never going to be worth anything. Nobody collects these other sports. People only collect baseball cards.
Right.
Some people were smart enough to take a risk and buy them. I look back saying, for $50, why didn't I just, take some and throw them in the corner? At worst comes to worst, I'll have to resell them for $2 and get my money back out of it. But,
yeah. So one that, I could mention, and for those of you that don't know, I go around buying collections for Baseball Card Exchange. Pre-2020, we got, we had always junk wax offers. Everybody would call us, and we always had a lot. We have limited space at our warehouse, and so, when we buy these big deals, then maybe, if they're not fitting in our warehouse, we have to go rent, additional space. And so before 2020, we were getting all these offers, and we were actually passing on some of this junk wax deals. I wish we would have bought everything.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where our warehouse manager, Rick, would be like $2 a box, $40 a case.
Yeah.
And sometimes people would take it, sometimes they wouldn't. Usually I felt embarrassed telling them that because I'm sure they paid a lot more. Mm-hmm. But once we got it here at $40 a case, it wasn't easy to do much with it at that point. Yeah, well, a lot
of our friends, dealers in the hobby would come to me at card shows, and they'd say, "Hey, I want to offer to you this first. I've got 4 cases of whatever junk wax, and I need X amount for it." I said, "Oh man, we can't pay that much for that. This is what we typically buy it at." Mm-hmm. He goes, "Well, this company, and this company have buy prices up for this." Are you kidding me? At that price? So I think we would sell it, at that price. So, from 2020, things really changed. And so, obviously we would have bought a lot of stuff prior to 2020. Or
one thing that was even worse was junk non-sports.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, junk non-sports, I meant late 70s, early 80s of all of the Topps titles, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, later Fright Flicks.
Yeah.
We didn't want to pay $2 a box.
No.
It was $1.
Yeah.
And then we tried to sell it for $3 or $4.
Yeah.
Wasn't easy.
Right.
And now all these boxes are usually all at least $100 and, a lot of times more than that.
Yeah, like the WWF Topps 80s stuff. I mean, all that stuff has went up a lot. And
I specifically remember, is it 88 Fright Flicks with Freddy Krueger
on
it?
Oh, yeah. Very cool box.
Yep. People offering us a bunch of cases for $40, $2 a piece. Mm-hmm. And we passed. And, what are we going to do with this?
Right.
That's too much. We don't want to hold it. We don't want to store it.
Yeah.
And now it's at least a $100 box.
Yeah. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was so cheap. It's a lot of that real cheap stuff where
Topps closeouts. Yeah. Alien, Close Encounters, Three's Company.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so you look at, let's use your 75 mini box and say if you bought all those cases, you were into a box for what, $600?
I'm guessing it was around $600.
So $600. It's went up. What is that?
18,000.
20 times?
Yeah. Yep.
So 20x. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what's better buy? That at 600 or ET?
Yeah.
At $2 and now it sells for 100.
Yeah, exactly.
So that junk wax and that non-sports are definitely some that got away. And for people that could buy cases at $40 and just throw them in their garage or throw them in their basement or throw them in a storage unit, and now they're just getting back to them. I mean, that's a nice increase right there.
Exactly.
Card-wise, single card-wise, is there cards that I know a lot of people come to me at shows and go, "Oh, I wish I would have bought that card off Steve at the 2006 National."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are there any cards that you personally wish that you would have bought that you were offered and maybe passed for one reason or another?
Back in the late mid 90s.
Okay.
When we had just recently opened the store, a good friend, also a dealer in the business, needed to borrow some money to buy a collection. Mm-hmm. And he said, "And I'm going to give you good collateral for it." And I gave him $20,000 cash, and he gave me a 52 Mantle PSA 8 to hold for the $20,000.
Right.
And I threw it into the safe. Felt okay. This is okay. And after a few months, I believe he was having trouble paying me back. Mm-hmm. And I think he came to me and said, "How about you keep the card and we'll just call it a wash?" And I thought about it, and I said, "No, I'd rather have the 20 grand back, but I'll give you more time because I don't mind holding his collateral."
Right.
So there's a good example.
That's an example right there. My goodness, wow, PSA 8. Yeah, I mean, it's you've done a good job putting money back into the business, and I think you've done that ever since you started. So I think you understood, you had the foresight to realize, I need to put money into this business to build a bigger bankroll so I don't ever have to really turn down deals.
Right.
Right. Yep. So there probably isn't a ton of really cool cards that you've passed up. But sure, there's some, like Jackie Robinson's.
Yes. Yep. I mean,
he exploded in the past.
Yep. I should have been smart enough to think about how he's not just a sports icon, but a historical icon. And I always thought about it, but never thought about, buying cards of his and throwing them in the closet. And now, obviously, we should have.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. And we've seen that increase in the past 5 years that has been, I don't know if you would compare it towards, if you compare it against Mickey Mantle's or, Sandy Koufax rookies or any of those iconic cards, I think you would see a bigger percentage in increase with Jackie Robinson cards than probably most.
Yeah, probably.
In the past 5 or 6 years.
Exactly. Yep.
So people have really jumped on that train. Anything else that you can think of?
Going along with the junk wax theory is all the 86 Fleer I passed up.
Oh, yeah.
At $5 a box, $5 a set.
Yeah.
100 count lots of Jordans for $100. Nobody's ever going to want basketball. It's baseball only. Same thing with hockey, Gretzky's and Lemieux and all that stuff. It was trash.
It was.
You couldn't sell it. Mm-hmm. So, and then I would say in 88, 89, there was interest all of a sudden that football started to move. It was the first of the 3 other sports to start to get popular. I remember 84 football wax going from $5 to 80 in a year, and that was a pretty interesting jump.
So that's a and this isn't sort of along the topic that we're talking about, but you've been around long enough to say, okay, 1988 Topps football started moving better than 87 or 86 in the year of issue. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Would that be in direct correlation to Bo Jackson?
Bo Jackson, and here in Chicago, I believe it was Neil Anderson.
Oh, yeah, right.
Was an extremely popular card.
Yes, it was.
And Bo, yes.
Yeah. Yep. And then, Bo knows. I mean, that was the ad campaign, right? And we hadn't seen an athlete like him come along.
No, not at all.
Ever, really, right?
Yeah.
or maybe since who? Jim Thorpe?
Jim Thorpe, yep.
Yeah.
That's a good example, yep.
Right. So Bo, and then, Nike ran those just amazing ad campaigns with the bow nose. And at the time, Bo Jackson or Michael Jordan, who's the most popular figure currently, and some might have given the nod to Bo Jackson.
Commercial with Bo Diddley.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that was a great one.
Yep.
That was a great one. I mean, Nike had some great commercials.
Yep.
So, and maybe that's what spurred along, if you will, football cards. But you're right. I've told this several times now in podcasts. My first pack of cards was 86 Fleer basketball that I opened. I took it into the house, and a family member that collected cards said, "Oh, that stuff's junk. You only want to collect baseball."
Yep, exactly.
Well, they were wrong.
I specifically remember in the late 80s setting up at a major Chicago show. And when the show opened, some of the major, large dealers in the country were walking from booth to booth, buying up all the O.J. Simpson rookies.
Oh, wow.
For no apparent reason. He was great.
Yes.
And football was just starting to... So it kind of, put a lot of thought into people's minds. What's going on? Why are they buying all this stuff up? And the following show, they bought up all the Lou Alcindor rookies from 69, 70. Again, they were $25, $35,
cheap.
but it made us all think, if these large, dealers are trying to buy all up of something, there must be a reason. The demand must be coming.
Right.
So,
well, and that's it. I mean, the ones that got away, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yep.
We've all had these stories, and that's what makes this industry so fun. Items that we could have bought that we passed up. We probably think about these stories all of the time. But Steve, thanks for the insight.
No problem.
That's another episode of a BBCE podcast. Please follow us on all of the different outlets and channels, and we will see you next time.